excited to bring Regi back. She did a brief video Zoom meeting with us at the welcome back and gave every staff members. Regi was so impressed with our superintendent, Dr. Taylor, that we gave every staff member, over 1,200, a copy of the book, The Heart-Centered Teacher, Restoring Joy and Hope, Joy, and Possibility in Uncertain Times.
Hello.
And if somebody is not muted, could you mute? So today's focus is going to be more on the instructional literacy perspective. So we invited teachers, K-12, and Regi is a longtime expert on all things literacy and beyond in classroom teaching. And she's going to be one of our keynote breakout sessions at our upcoming mini U on Friday, March 7th. And she and I will do something like this, but her topic will be from her chapter in a book about the storytelling, how it connects with our You Are Welcome Here. And that's going to be open to all staff, not like an instructional focus. So today's a special treat for our classroom teachers to spend an hour with Regi this afternoon, and she's going to take us away through the lens of literacy instructional practices. So welcome, Regi. Welcome to Walnut
Thank you,
Valley with all of our
Cindy.
teachers.
Great to be side by side with you. And the reason, everybody, that was so important for me to be sitting next to Jeanette is because I think of, and hope you do also, as curriculum as conversation. And the conversations we have, the questions that we ask, that kids formulate, that we formulate, the level of the conversation that goes on really determines the depth of the learning that goes on. Also, as a speaker, it's just not fun to see yourself looking at yourself. And so I'm much happier looking at lovely Jeanette, who has been just a delight to work with. And she will be chiming in because it is a conversation, even though I'm leading it for sure. But anytime you want to say something, just please join in. But I want to start by talking about, first of all, we're in a very tough time, right? And so I'm hoping that you're going to walk away feeling maybe a bit more hopeful, maybe a little bit inspired. Why it's really important to have a positive mindset. And when I started out teaching, I did not. I had not yet been reading recovery trained. And when I saw a child or tested a child, I was looking at the deficits. What does this child need? What is it that he can't do? And I was not yet smart enough to be thinking about celebration, really seeing this child's strengths and building on those strengths and interests, because that's where we get all of the kids really doing well. And so, I've changed the way I think about kids that are struggling. I think about them as up and coming, not struggling. I think about kids' differences, not their deficits, and that's really, really important. I think, and just letting go of that deficit language and focusing on the assets and the strengths that every child has. They come to us with more strengths and than we know about, and to value the assets, their language, their culture, and to make our teaching richer because of it. I want to start. I know the audience is K-12, and I want you to think that I'm going to start with a kindergarten story. I don't want you thinking, "Oh, I'm a high school teacher. This doesn't apply to me." I taught mostly elementary and still work mostly elementary, but I work high school and middle school too. And the process is the same in terms of the teaching that we do and how we get kids engaged and joyful. So I want you to listen to this story and well, you'll get the message of it. This is happened this summer. It was the middle of the summer, one of Seattle's beautiful summers, and I was taking a walk in my neighborhood, as I often do. And I ran into Stuart, and I didn't know him at all, except that he was a neighbor that I passed once in a while on a walk. I knew he had a daughter. I knew she was in kindergarten. And so I said, "Oh, how are you? And how's Chloe doing?" "Oh, she's just not doing well. She's not reading yet, and the teachers are worried about her." And he said, "In fact, we've spent the summer so far going through the phonics worksheets that they've sent home, and she's reading these little books. I think they were called Bob books. I don't know, but she really was not enjoying reading." And I said, "Well, wait, 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 wait." I said, "I think you might know that I'm a reading teacher, and I know a lot about reading, and I've never not been able to teach a child to read. Don't worry about that at home. Let the school take care of that. You want to just enjoy books with her, read aloud to her." He was kind of taken aback by that. And I said, "You know what? I know you don't live far from me. Why don't you come over with your wife, who I'd never met, and Chloe, and let me show you another way that let me get to know her. And I promise you she'll have well, I'll make sure she has a great time. I made my famous chocolate chip cookies. I found out she didn't like nuts, so I made them without nuts. And so she comes over and she's this adorable little girl. She's all dressed up. She's very excited to be there. Brings me a little bunch of flowers, which was very sweet. And she comes in and she wants a tour of the house. I mean, this child was not shy, very curious, wanted to know about my husband. She walks around and she sees his artist studio in our basement. She sees walls of books because I'm a book person. That won't surprise any of you. And so we started out in the basement where I have all the children's books, and I pulled some for her. And I started, and I let her choose one, and that was the one she wanted me to read aloud to her. And while I'm reading aloud to her, her father is over her shoulder saying, "Now you know that word, and how does that word begin?" And I don't, no, 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 Stuart. We're just going to enjoy the book together. We're just going to talk about it together. Don't worry about every letter and every sound. And then she was very eager to go upstairs, and she saw that I was a writer. I told her I was a writer. I had books everywhere, and I showed her the book that I had just written, The Heart Center Teacher. And then we had lemonade and we had chocolate chip cookies outside. And then I said, "I've got a treat for you." My husband Frank, who you now know is an artist, he built a tree house. We call it the Treehouse Tea House for our granddaughters when they were little. And there's a surprise up there for you. So let's go follow the trail. And the tree house, it's not really in the trees. In a tree, it's high up on a hill behind our house. Um, and um, and it's delightful. And so it's an actual structure, high up with trees surrounding it. And there's a little porch there, and it has a hammock swing, which every little child, or big child, it will hold you even if you weigh 300 pounds, has loved that swing back and forth, has taken a book. And she didn't pay any attention to any of that. She walked into the room where I had books laid out. And also, there was a desk there that my husband made from some distressed wood and a stool. And I had put out just some plain white computer paper, some crayons, and a pen. She went right over to that desk, never looked at a book, and she started drawing. And she did a drawing of her family, very intricately done. She was very proud of it. And it was just kind of fascinating. Her parents were very surprised. She had no interest in reading a book and swinging in the chair. She wanted to write and she wanted to draw. Mostly she wanted to draw. So we came back downstairs. She's wandering through the house. She picks up my weights and she's like, "Look how strong I am." And then she sees my computer and everything. And she said, "I want to be a writer too." She said, "Could you teach me to write? What would I need to do to learn how to write?" And I said, "Well, Chloe, you've already got the first part. You have a great imagination. And, I could help you, become a writer." And she was very, very excited about that. She gave the drawing that she did to my husband, Frank. She didn't want to take it with her. She wanted him to have it. And I promised her that if her parents allowed it, that I would help her become a writer. I tell you this story, and there's a whole other part of it that I'm not going to say because what's important about it is that we have to find a way in for every child, and it's not the same for every child. And I write about, and I'm going to talk about today, the reading writing connection, how powerful that is. This child's way into reading is through writing and drawing. And so, when I had the opportunity to sit down with her using her illustrations, and we write a very simple story together. Um, but it's really important that the messages that we give to parents are positive ones. And the phonics craze is everywhere. I think it's maybe less where you are due to your leadership. But the phonics and the reading and the writing need to go together. And all this child was getting at home, I mean, at school, was emphasis on the phonics and not seeing herself as a reader. And I said, "Well, Stuart, she's not a reader yet, but she will be a reader." And for me, the really important part of this story is that it's not a one size fits all, even if you're teaching high school. Um, I saw immediately something that her parents did not. And it wasn't only because I mean, they're educated people, they're college educated people. They saw their child is failing to learn to read. And that's not a message we want to give. And so for her, and they are now, she's getting help and they are starting with her writing. Um, and she will become a reader, a very, very good reader. But it's about seeing kids and adults and seeing their strengths and making sure that they succeed. That's really important. And also by prioritizing her love of joy, her love of writing. She was writing random letters and stuff, and drawing particular was a way to engage her and also, to get that joy piece in there. Um, so do you want, I don't know if you don't need to say anything, but if you want to say anything, did anything strike you about that?
No,
Uh,
I love how you just emphasize that it's not one size fits all.
yeah.
And I think with our teachers in our district, they truly look at each student with like the whole child.
Mhm.
And it's really not teaching a reading program, but teaching the reader. So
Absolutely.
your message just resonates with what our teachers strive to do every single day is knowing every student by their need, by their name, needs, and asset. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Great.
sharing that story.
Yeah. So I want to talk about being a reader. I don't think you can teach reading or writing without being a reader or a writer. That doesn't mean you have to be great at it, but you have to at least be doing it. You can't be teaching it if you're not doing it. I've been keeping a history of my reading in little notebooks. This one is maybe my 14th notebook. I've been doing this for more than 20 years. And this is a new one. I don't know. You can see what I do is I write down what I've read each month,
Mhm.
and you'll see that. We'll show you a little bit more about that in a little bit. And if I like the book and who the author is, what the genre is, and if I really love the book, then I star it. And I would say if you're teaching high school, be careful about how much writing we ask kids to do in response to reading. We really want them to be readers. We're not just teaching reading, we're teaching readers. We're teaching writers. We're not just teaching the subject matter. So in December, I read a lot of books. And in January as well. And I just made my February page, and of course, there's nothing on it yet. But I do know what I'm going to read next. And this is something that you want to be thinking about no matter what grade you're teaching and the way your room is set up for reading. The next book that I'm going to be reading is this one, which my neighbor just loaned me, which is called Lovely One. And it's Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's our newest Supreme Court Justice. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Um, and so I would say, use something simple as a model to document what they're reading and what you're reading. I have a lot of adult friends now that keep reading journals like this. And it's just very simple. It's nothing fancy. And then I start each new one with a quote that I've read somewhere that means a lot to me. So I started this one in August 2024, and this is a quote by Aristotle. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So I see Jeanette shaking her head. We know that's true. Um, I'm going to be sharing with you because it was just posted when we take a look at my website in a little bit. Some of the books that I've been reading, I have found, and this will be true for kids too, because of the contentious times we're living in right now. Everybody's really stressed. I don't need to say more. I found that I could not read anything that was violent, that was really hard to understand. And so I've been reading a lot of short books. And so you'll see in this posting, I have about 8 books that are very short. And my favorite of all of these, small things like these, you see this Oprah's Book Club by Claire Keegan, one of my favorite books of all time. You can read it in one sitting. It's about 90 pages and absolutely fantastic. There's also a movie. I don't recommend the movie. The book is always better. I say that having seen the movie. Um, and so I do a combination of reading professional books, and this is one that I highly recommend, Peter Johnson's book, Choice Words. The language that we use with the learners changes everything in terms of um, who are the teachers in the classroom. It's all the kids, it's not just us. This is a really wonderful book that will make you a better teacher. And this one is a new book by Kelly Gallagher. If you teach high school, you know him and you see I've got it all. I don't, I like to I try not to underline, but because I don't like to mess up the book. And so I've tried to use post-its more than underlining. It's a combination, but this is really good. To read stuff, you have to know stuff. You can't just teach them how to sound out words. They have to have a vocabulary, the background knowledge, and it's really excellent. For high school teachers, I would say definitely get that book. The last book that I read, and I recommend this as well, called Good Reasonable People. Where are they, right? The psychology behind America's dangerous divide. This is an excellent book. You will come away understanding why we are so divided as a country and how we can really see people that we think they're not on our side, conservative or liberal. And he questions uh, why that happened, how it happened, and it changed me as the way I see what's going on politically. I'm just not going to say more about that. I read a lot of poetry, especially now. I just find it really soothing. I write poetry, and I would say I tell the story of Crystal, a high school student in my book, and how poetry, it didn't change her life, but it opened her up to accepting her life and realizing that she wasn't bound to the abuse that she suffered. That wasn't the end of her life. And I share some of her poems in there, and some of you have probably seen that. Um, this is my favorite picture book. It's new. You may have heard about it. It's called The Yellow Bus. I read picture books to high school students. I've given this one to adult friends. It's a bestseller by Lauren Long. The illustrations are amazing. And at the back of the book, he explains how he built an entire village. It's about a yellow bus that's sitting in a field and what happens as over the years and what people notice about it and how that bus is used. It will resonate with you. He says, um, this my book is a poignant reflection on the many new beginnings every life has to offer and the wonder of the journey along the way. And the last 4 pages, he describes his artistic process, and that's fascinating too. I'm certified as a teacher for kids with quote the label learning disabilities, and for so many of those kids, the way in is through art, is through creation, and through their drawing. I have found that with kids of all ages, so the arts are really, really important. I also read. I just subscribed to this magazine because I'm worried about democracy surviving. And this is very helpful. The Nation. This is the February issue. I also subscribe. This is my favorite one. And I love to read. I love to cook. Some of you know that if you've read my book. Milk Street. Wonderful if you're an adventurous cook, or even if you're not. And I read a lot of book reviews. And so all of this you want to translate into the classroom. You want to have a space, regardless of how old the children are. You're reading aloud every day, even high school. Have audiobooks. You have what my bookseller calls shelf talkers, where you have books that you want people to notice. They're face out, so you're not just looking at the spine, you're looking at the cover. You want to have make sure there are places for them to sit comfortably. And then there are book podcasts, short videos, reading corner, where kids are talking about books, making their pitch about why they love this book. Um, and really, those are the three things I want to leave you with today. The reading and the writing is everything, and that no matter what subject you're teaching, literacy is in that subject, whether it's history, whether it's science. And in fact, in the work that I've done over the years in residency work, we started off with just, I would be called in to teach, to help the kids be better readers and writers. And they weren't teaching social studies and science because they didn't have time. And there was a lot of word work going on, a lot of words in isolation. And so the only way we could fit everything in was to put all of the reading and writing into the content areas. And I'll show you what that looked like. And you want to add anything else or so? And also you saw in my book, The Power of Audiobooks through TED, that whole story of TED. So I love that story because I was only able to teach him when I could see him, when I could see his gifts. And then it wasn't that hard, even though he only had 2 telephones. So I think hopefully you read the story about how I actually did teach him. He's a fluent reader today. I learned as much teaching him as from him as he learned from me. And our relationship continues, even though he's back to work as a custodian at a big marketplace. And it was a very, very important experience because I've noticed, and you probably have too, that, and I noticed this in the book a lot, liberal, conservative, rural, city. We think we're very different from each other, but we're not. And I found out that, um, working with this man who was middle-aged, He was probably smarter than I am. I mean, he knew so much about the world and music that I didn't know anything about. Um, and you find reading and writing is a way to find that out. All right, I want to talk about, do you want to say anything else, Jeanette? You don't need to, but you can. Um, I think we're okay on time. I want to talk about the power of poetry for reading and writing, especially now. This is this is what I gave to my husband for our anniversary last week. It's a lot of poems that I had written to him and for him over the years. This is a poetry. This I made for him for his 60th birthday, which was a while ago. And I'm not artistic, but there's about 20 poems in here, and there's I've got you know I've got a collage of places that we've been together. Well, the reason I'm showing this to you is because I bought my husband, he's an architect and an artist, many gifts over the years. This is the only one I think that he really loved. He's very particular. And he won't let me take it out. I said, honey, I'm only showing it over the screen. It's not going to get lost. But when I was traveling, he would not let me take it, which was a sign of how valuable it was to him. Um, for if you're teaching kindergarten, or any grade, I wrote these books years ago.
I used that when I was teaching first grade years ago.
And they're available, they're very inexpensive. You can find them on my website. And these were written for parents as well.
Mm.
I gave a copy of this to Zoe's, one of these to Zoe's. And what I love about these is that the kids writing, and I don't know, well, a couple of things. I didn't know that kindergarten kids could write poetry. I decided I was going to find out. And what I learned was I was making it harder for them when I started this about 20 years ago by teaching all the elements separately. Like, this is a line break, kids. This is what we mean when we're talking about rhythm. This is how you might do punctuation. I found that actually made it harder for them. And so by demonstrating, and I'll show you what that looked like, by demonstrating for them, they could, it was much easier for them to do it as a whole. The brain works better as a whole like that. You're shaking your head. And so what the part of the book that works so well that I really love, and that teachers love as well, is that the kids write, they put it out on the page, in their own language. And then the only thing the teacher did was take it exactly as the child write it, not change anything that was done, except correct the spelling, because the reader expects to see it spelled correctly. But nothing is changed from, and this one I love. This is called Flowers. So every child is successful, and this is really important. So this little poem, Flowers. Flowers are pretty, flowers can be bouquets, flowers I like, flowers I love. And Meredith is just thrilled to pieces because she wrote a poem. She doesn't know all her letters and sounds. It doesn't matter. She had the sense that she could write the poem. I love the power of that. I want to show you this. This is I did a lot with what I called heart poems. This is from a fourth and fifth grade class, where we immerse them in the poetry. We write poems together, and then they wrote their own. And it's a beautiful book. And this becomes part of the classroom library. It also goes into the school library, and the kids love doing it. This one's called Cheerful Moments. I had so many of these books, I didn't know where to start. Now, the lesson plan for this, Heart Poems, is extensive, and it's in my book, Writing Essentials. And so you'll see what that would look like at the different grade levels, and what it would look like over, I think, several weeks of teaching that. All right. Now I want to show you, because I want you to go back to school with lots and lots of ideas. The reading and the writing, the reading writing connection, and how you can use that to teach everything. So this was written by first grade students, procedures, how to put a book back in the school library. So there's a lot of text here, and a lot of this is first grade. A lot of it's written together, shared writing. You probably know about that, and I can show you where to find more information about that. How to go out to recess, you know, And some of these are written by individual kids, some of them by the whole class in a shared writing, depending on where they are in the process. This is a bilingual book. And if you can't find books for your youngest readers, then write them yourself. Have somebody, I don't know how many languages you have in your district. I'm guessing at least several, many.
Yeah.
And if you can't
Yeah.
find books, you can't find books, then you've got to write them. So this one, we read Just Write Books.
Hmm.
Is it in English and Spanish? Nosotros leemos libros que son fáciles. And they can always read the books that they write. It's very simple. We write stories. There's no way they can't read that. And every child gets a copy and they take that home and they read it to their parents. And then there's a copy. A lot of these are kept in the principal's office or the assistant superintendent's office. The real deal on the fire drill. Here's what you need to know about fire drill, written with the class, written by Mrs. Thompson's first grade class. And then they all have their names signed. And this is really a big deal because they love these books. They wrote them. The fire alarm is really so loud, so everyone can hear it. This becomes our reading material and our writing material. So we do it together as a class. They attempt it with a partner. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. This one is one of my favorites. Everybody cries. Teacher had a meltdown. You can relate to that one day in first grade classroom. And she cried. She started crying, and the kids were so upset. I mean, I was there, so I know. And so we decided, let's write a book, Everybody Cries. We don't want the teacher to feel bad. She had a bad day. We've all had bad days. And what do we do? And this was Mrs. Thompson. She said, when I'm feeling sad or angry, I write a play or play my trumpet. When I was little, I snuggled with Winnie the Pooh. You see that. My favorite one is one where this person says, I eat donuts to feel better. I can relate to that. But it's just a delightful book. And of course, everybody wanted to read it. And you can get, all the kids' copies in black and white, right? Which wouldn't cost so much. Or even just digital, and they can read it to their parents. Here's another bilingual one. I love Sundays or I love Saturdays. And here, Mrs. Routman plays with Katie and Brooke, my granddaughters. Senora Routman juega con Katie and Brooke. So they took this, book that they loved reading, and then we made it a bilingual book. Very easy to do and delightful. And lots of now for older kids, this we had in the principal's office when new people came in. Eagle's Eye Around Swanson School, there's a map. There's about how to dress for the cold weather. There's, if you're a new student, here's what you need to know. So all of the writing is for real world authentic purposes. It's not for the teacher. It's not to pass a test. It's the way we use literature in the real world. How do you make friends? Do you have trouble making friends when you move? If you do, read this. We understand making friends is hard. Here are some tips to get you back on track. So you see that. These are, if you're a parent and you've just moved into a new community, you don't know anybody, and you go into the assistant superintendent's office, she has all these handmade books. It's very impressive. We're showing that we're not talking about test scores. We're talking about raising readers and writers who love to read and write. And I wanted to show you two that are very significant. Remember when I said that all of the reading and writing is happening in the content areas? In Winnipeg, where I've been working for more than a dozen years, which was where this sort of insight came together. Rather than we fit the standards into the big issues in life, like climate change, energy, poverty, homelessness, and putting the reading and writing here. Here is the environmental change about polar bears and what's going on with them. And this is an absolutely gorgeous book, as nice as anything you would find in with a table of contents. It's just really beautiful. And it went into the school library. And what was happening with the polar bears that they learned was that the ice floes were melting so quickly that the polar bears were dying. They couldn't get enough food. And what are we going to do about that? And what's happening worldwide about that? And so, figuring out the main facts about polar bears. What do they know? The lesson plan for this is, we'll show you where it is very extensive and can be generalized to any grade that you are teaching. And this one here, polar bears and global warming are the biggest threats to polar bears. So global warming is a big concern, as you know, climate change. So what does that mean for us as students, and what's our responsibility? So we have Lake Winnipeg is one of the I think it's the eighth largest lake in the world, and it's very polluted, so much so that it's difficult for people to swim in the summer. And kids really took that on in terms of why that is and what could we do to change that. And they got after their parents about making the environment cleaner, safer. They did this is from first grade all so the endangered species was the focus for the entire school for 1 year. For the entire school for 1 year. So it was building on the grade level content from year to year. And all the standards that were, they're piecemeal, all of that was, quote, covered in that work. Kids did podcasts, went to local radio stations, wrote to editorials in the local newspaper, the kind of stuff that you want activist citizens to be doing, to be knowledgeable and to be trying to persuade other people. Picture a group of 6 and 7 year olds going to a school board and presenting what they know. It's very powerful. Or being on a radio broadcast. Very, very powerful. This one, this was done by fourth and fifth graders, making the world a better place. It's just a beautiful book. Of course, these go in the principal's office. Imagine the collection you'd have in your office,
I
Jen.
know.
And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I love this book. And what are you doing to make the world a better place? And I like this one. This young man was homeless,
Mm.
and so his job was to shovel around. Was homeless some of the time and in a foster home, to shovel around his house. It was a foster home in the winter. But a lot of these are to help parents, help neighbors, contribute to the community. This one is helping friends, stopping bullying. Now, imagine if we were teaching like this. Think about where we are today politically. Imagine if we were teaching like this with this kind of empathy and seeing people and wanting to make their lives more joyful, seeing them as up and coming, even if they're not quite there yet. That would make a big difference, I think. That class sent me a letter. There were no spelling mistakes about what they learned from the work we did here. I'm just going to read a few of them because I want you to see the depth. This was a fourth and fifth grade class, the depth of the learning. Editing is easier than revising. Always think of the reader. It is so important to create an interesting lead so you hook your reader and make them want to keep reading. Write with heart and soul. This is different comment from everybody, and very sophisticated comments. No spelling mistakes, no editing mistakes, because they know there's a real reader. Revising is the hardest part because you're constantly thinking, and that is hard. Everyone has something worth celebrating in their writing. I love that. The best titles are short and sweet. So there were 24 kids in the class, and there are 24 comments. They're all different about what they learned about being a writer. They're very powerful. My nose just fell to the floor, so I have to bend down and get them. All right.
I'm gonna tell our teachers who are with us, if you have any questions or comments, just put it in the chat, and then if we are gonna be looking at our time, and if we have time towards the end, we'll look through the questions and have Regi answer a few of them. But feel free to use the chat to put your comments or questions.
Absolutely. All right. Let's show them. I want to Jeanette is going to show
Yeah.
you.
Let me share my screen.
And what she's showing you is the website that goes with, I call it a companion website that goes with the Heart Center teacher. And I want you to see what's there. And she kindly
Can you see
offered
that,
that.
Regi?
Yeah, I can see that. Can you
Okay.
all see that? Okay. So this is my website. And if you go there, and if we go down, just scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right there, stop. What I'm reading, January 2025. That is a new posting that I did it just a couple of days
Oh,
ago.
right here. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, And so we can, but I want to go back to well, I don't have to go back there, but there's articles I've written, there's all the books, there's lots and lots of information that's
Mhm.
very practical and specific. This one here, Crucial Conversations, is a new feature where it's a side-by-side conversation with an educator. This is a brilliant teacher in South Carolina, and our conversation was teaching with heart in difficult times.
Mhm.
And it's worth listening to. It's a half hour. I'm saying it's worth listening to because she's really brilliant there.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so if we,
Oh, and the website is reggieroutman, one word.org. And
yeah,
Tammy, do you want to just put that in the chat?
yeah,
reggieroutman.org.
that would be great. Okay, and so click on right in the middle. So she's modeling for you what to look at when you go on this website. So click on in the middle where it says companion site, key resources, and we want to take you
The
through
book,
some of
and
those
then it's going to take
resources.
us right here.
Yeah. And then we want to look at, it's very kind of hard to see right now, but
Is it under more? Let's see.
can you make that a little bigger or not? Probably
You
not.
want me to go to, I forget which chapter. Was it chapter
Well, yeah, go to chapter 6.
6?
Well, I
Okay.
wanted them to see what was here. Okay, so all the way to the right, all of the chapters have resources to go with them. I'm going to show
Hmm.
you the ones that have the most resources. Also, there are some recipes here. Those chocolate chip cookies I told you
Oh.
about, I'm famous for them. So the recipe's there, and they're the healthiest chocolate chip cookies with more chocolate, less flour, oatmeal. They're really great. So,
Wow.
and you want to bring all this stuff about yourself that you're comfortable talking about into the classroom. So we're seen as people that they can relate to, and we have lives, and we go to theater, we play tennis, whatever it is.
Hmm.
They love hearing about that.
Hmm.
So we're going to go to chapter 6 first.
I went to the far right, under
Yes, all the
more,
way to the
chapter
far right.
6. So I'm
Perfect.
clicking
Yeah.
on chapter 6.
And if you scroll and just scroll down at the bottom so they can see how many, there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of
Oh
resources
yeah.
here. Um, the first one I want to show them is, oh, it's so hard to see now, but there's one there on writing that says, and I just added it this weekend, but you'll find it there. It's simplifying the teaching
Oh,
of writing.
I see it.
You
Simplify the
do?
teaching.
Okay.
You
All
want me
right,
to click
good.
onto that?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, but the one I want you to click on, chapter 6, I want to talk about the optimal learning model. So there you,
Oh, I
yeah,
see it right here.
right. And the first one we wanted to talk about was where it says the optimal learning model across the curriculum. We
Mm-hmm.
want to click on
You
that.
want me to click on that? Okay.
So all of my teaching is based on this model, which it is based on the gradual release model that was Pearson and Gallagher in 1984, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
How this model is, oh, that's great that you got it bigger,
Yeah.
is different, is that it's focused on the learner. In the gradual release model, a lot of the focus, at least the way I interpret it, and other people as well, is on the teacher, what the teacher is doing. The teacher decides when to release responsibility. This is about the learner. What does the learner need in order to become more independent? So it's really the least amount of terrific demonstrating and shared demonstrating and guided practice that you can do so that the student is independent, even in kindergarten. And I'll show you some of the resources for that. Um, all of this has to do with front loading. So all of the books that I shared with you that we wrote together as a class, we started with the demonstration. We went to, then the shared demonstrations is we did it together. Um, but the person who was holding the pen was still the teacher or the expert. And then the crossover, the guided practice, this is where the child is in charge. And this is where, like in guided reading groups, teachers are still doing all the work, which means they shouldn't be in this stage. They should still be here. Here, the child is in charge. It's the we do it, but it's the student who's in charge. Over here, when they're still just learning how to do this. Like, let's go to the next one. I'll give you a little bit more so that you don't think of that. No, yeah,
Oh,
right.
go
No,
back here.
that's right. The next one is ongoing cycle of responsive teaching. I want you to see that
Okay.
because no matter what your grade is, and if we can make that bigger,
Yep.
oh, you're wonderful.
There we go.
Oh, wow. I need you. I need you for all my
I
talks.
will I will be your sidekick anytime, Reggie.
Okay. So, Donald Graves was horrified because I knew him personally. We were colleagues. and he's probably done more work on the teaching of writing than anybody else. He was horrified that teachers interpreted his work as, well, if it's Monday, we're writing, and if it's Tuesday, we're revising, and if it's Wednesday, it's editing, that linear. No, that's not how it happens. So you could start anywhere. Maybe you start with celebration, maybe you start with assessment. So to want to be really clear, all of these elements are in there, the celebration, the demonstration, which is, it can be an explanation. The hand-holding part is where I think we do not do enough with, especially at the high school level, the higher grades, where we're doing it together. And I'll show you an example of that shortly. Noticing and naming the learner's strengths, but it's a cycle, and you can approach it anywhere in the cycle. Okay, so we want to go to, also at the very bottom, there's an extensive lesson plan.
Oh, right here. You want me to click
Yeah,
on it?
yeah, click on
Okay.
that. And I want you to know on that, regardless of the grade that you teach, this lesson plan, which we worked really hard on, is about, see, it's taking a while to load.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
It's a-
there we go. Okay.
Here we go. It's about almost 60 pages, and you can just scroll while I'm talking,
Okay.
just so they can. And this is the front loading. By that,
Mm,
I mean everything that's necessary for the kids to be successful, to be independent. All of the goals of the lesson,
mhm,
the anchor charts, the reflections by the teacher, um, and this is where you'll see the lesson plan for how this book came to be, but you could be able to generalize it to any subject area. And
mhm,
you'll see that entire lesson plan, so that
mhm,
you would have no trouble use applying it. It's
mhm,
really, I think, I can say it's some of the best work because teacher, Tris Richardson, wrote most of it.
mhm,
And I love her reflections in there, what worked, what didn't work. And here, notice her plan here is follows the optimal learning model,
mhm,
and what
mhm,
she did on day one, day two, day three. But again, it's written in a way that it won't matter what your grade level is. You'll be able to get something out of it, I promise you. All
mhm.
right, let's go to
Back to the website.
chapter 3. Yeah.
Chapter 3. Okay. So chapter 3 is up here.
Yeah,
Mm,
okay. And these two chapters have the most of the resources in it, so I wanted to show you that for the practicalities in your teaching. And
mm,
the first one I want to show you is that scaffolded conversation video. Is just 2 minutes.
this one?
So
Mm,
click on that, and I'll,
okay.
I want to give you a little background here. So this was in the second to third grade classroom where we were working on this polar bear. Polar bears are becoming extinct, and why? And then after they had done that as a class and in small groups, then they were choosing their own animal. It didn't have to be with extinction, but what animal did they want to know more about? And we started with pick a fact, pick one fact, important fact about this animal. This was a second language learner, and I did not realize how smart he was because he didn't talk much. Um, and so I call this a scaffolded conversation where we put the language in the child's ear to help them take the ideas in their head and get them on paper. Um, and you'll see how he's able to do this. What most teachers tend to do is just keep asking questions, and that doesn't work. Your child just gets even more quiet. So this is 2 minutes, and I want you to be looking for, this is the classroom teacher, Trish Richardson. And she and I worked together for about 5 years in Winnipeg, and it was her class that did the polar bear book. And so I'm coaching her at the same time. But see what you notice it seems important to you. And then we'll put Jeanette on the spot. Jeanette, you can tell us what you noticed that felt important. So we just play it. It's just two
Okay.
minutes.
I'll play it. Ready? Okay.
Yep. Probably get the audio up. Yeah.
Mm,
This is great. Over there, my first one is, what is it that makes something
You could
swim?
go full screen with that little,
That's one thing that you learned about the way they swim. That's pretty impressive. All right, so now put the language in his ear. Okay, you could say.
I'm telling her, put the language in his ear. You see, he wasn't saying anything, and she was just looking at him.
mm,
There makes them go swim, or is it the fact that they can use their eyes as models that makes them go swim? legs are like rudders, which a rudder is, remember how we talked about a rudder on a boat, moves the boat in different directions? So is it both of those things or one of those things? What stands out to you as important? Both of those things. So we don't hear your own words. How would you say if you're talking to a first grader or a second grader, like that teacher's school? What do you want to say to them? Yeah, how could you teach them about that? What could our sentence be about how they could swim?
Oh, sorry, it's malfunctioning, but he does speak and he does, there we go. And I'm writing down what he said. Those were his words.
Mhm. I mean,
Okay, you won't have any problem, I promise you, when you go to record it yourself.
mhm.
And then I just want to show you one other thing, and that is in the final chapter, I think it's chapter 10, which is become a significant influencer. And I want you to click on that third bullet that says teach the students well.
Oh, down here. Okay.
Yeah. And I just want to show you because of the times we're living in. I wrote a letter to the New York Times. I was very feeling, well, let's be honest, I was feeling depressed about the whole world situation. I'm like, well, what can I do? I can't. And there was an article in the New York Times, and it was called, maybe we can make that a little
Now
bit
I'm gonna try to zoom.
bigger.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. What will Trump do for failing public schools? And I'm only stating what's true. He says he's going to close the Department of Education. So I wrote a letter to the New York Times about why that was not a good idea, and we must fully commit ourselves to all students. I have been writing letters to the New York Times for 30 years. This was the first one. It's hard to get accepted. This got accepted, and I'm so proud of it. My husband framed it. But I talk about what's necessary so that for us to be graduating informed, civic-minded young adults. I don't think we're teaching enough history and citizenship. And I'm showing that to you there because we want, no matter how the age of our kids, we can close that out and come back to us side by side. We want them to become activist citizens who are making a difference in our country, starting in kindergarten or preschool, about fairness, right? About playing by the rules, about why we need to follow the law, why kindness is important. How do we treat everybody, with respect? And what can they do now if they're upset with, the Department of Education? If you're teaching high school, they need to know that the Department of Education is possibly closing. I mean, so we have to raise our voices, and that's not just us, right? But to teach that to kids, you have a say. If we want our democracy to survive, your voice matters, and to give them a voice is really important. All right. I want to tell you, if we just have enough, I want to tell you one other story, and then we'll go for some
On
questions.
time, it's 4:18 because we told our teachers it's 1 hour, 3:30 to
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So, how many questions do we have?
0.
Okay.
I
Perfect.
don't see any.
If you have a question, a burning question, I'll tell you what we can do, even if it happens later. They have no questions because we were so clear, right? You can send the question to Jeanette, or you can send it to me. You can just directly email me through my website, and I will promise to answer you within a few days. So I want to tell you the story. It's an important one about I was teaching in a fourth and fifth grade class some years ago, and the kids hated writing. I was brought in to improve the teaching of writing. No, I've never been in a school where we want you to come. We want to show you our kids love writing, and they love reading. And here's how we got there. It's never like that. And these kids really did. I don't remember what we focused on in writing, but I made sure that it was a topic that was interesting to them. But I was dismayed, but not surprised that when the teachers were talking, this was after I would modeled what a writing conference would look like. I would do public writing conferences. So the whole class was gathered around. You didn't have time to do 25 of them. And I would be commenting on the writing that the kids did. Now, the writing wasn't very, very accomplished because these kids didn't like to write. And the way it was being taught, it was all piecemeal. And it was, oh, no, you need to add some juicy words. Or let's go back. And I'm not looking at that because your handwriting's awful. Or you expect me to read that with your spelling that way? It was all negative. It was all what the child couldn't do. And they were shocked, I think, and I want you to think about that optimal learning model. We're going from, and that's all front loading, setting them up for success. We're giving lots and lots of support, which would be the demonstrations, the shared teaching, before we release them and expect them to be excellent, right? You don't go from something you're terrible at and you have a couple of lessons and then you're excellent. No, it's a lot of lessons and scaffolding and shared conversations and all of that. They didn't get that. But when they watched me with the kids, and I'm talking about, you skip lines. We talked about that. That's going to make it easier for the reader. What an interesting title. I know what this is going to be about. Not looking for what's wrong, but focusing on what's right. And at the end of the week, I always have the teachers do a reflection on what was helpful, what wasn't. They said the biggest thing, this was like almost to a teacher, that they learned from us working together and seeing me work with the kids was that good is good enough, which was the message that I gave them. You cannot expect excellence from these kids that don't like to write and they're just learning. And now they're finally writing about something that matters to them, authentic audience and purpose. And so they gave me this on my last day, which I have it hanging in my house. Now, notice the mirror down at the bottom. Are you looking at yourself, Jeanette?
Yeah.
Everybody, good is good enough. Look at the pressure that we're living under, all of us, with what's going on in our families, in our schools, in our homes, and we have to give ourselves a break. Have to give, go. It's still light out where you are because I know we're on the same time zone,
Yeah.
right? So go and take a walk, enjoy the sunshine that's out there. We have sunshine in Seattle, which is rare in the winter. So, all right, I'd like to, you want to I have something I want to read to them before we close. Do you want to make any closing comments yourself?
No. Is there anybody that wanted to ask a question to
We
reach?
still have time. Yeah.
You can turn on your video, unmute. Go to that teacher wait time.
Well, let me read this poem and then Jeanette, you can have the last word if you like. I wrote this poem for you
Okay.
and it's called My Hopes for You.
Oh,
I wish you, all of you, joy in your work, the ability to do less, but do it well, to have courage in these times of too much accountability, to make your voices heard and to respect everyone's voice, to trust each other, to enjoy your life, and to make a worthy difference. So I wish you all. Jeanette, I'll send you a copy of that if
Miss,
you want.
and is it okay if I email that to our
Oh,
teachers?
absolutely.
That's,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Uh,
just resonates with the heart of your message. Um, just restoring the hope and joy and resiliency. And our teachers do that every single day. And the fact that you wrote that poem for us just made it
yeah,
extra.
absolutely. I did. So, well, it's great to be with you. If a question comes up, don't hesitate to contact me or Jeanette. Um, Jeanette, it's a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for making things easy today. Some of you were here last time when the technology didn't work. So you know how that goes. And we both felt badly. It just happens. Um, but it is aggravating. Something always goes wrong in our days. And how we approach that. We finally decided we have to reschedule. This isn't working. So thank you all for bearing with that. I know that was probably inconvenient for some of you. It was inconvenient for us. Technology is tricky. So
So I think with all that, I know we're excited to have you back on March 7th. We haven't released our schedule yet to all of our staff members, but once it goes live, where it'll be a digital like sketch, we're doing it like a conference where they get to see all the breakout sessions, who the speakers are,
great.
and let us know who's choosing. But it will be a setting like we'll have people in the room And then I will be in the room and then virtually like this side by side. And you're speaking to all of our staff members, not
I'm
just
excited about that. And let me just say one quick thing about that. In planning for this session and in planning for the other one that's coming up, audience is everything. You know, the audience is different for the next one.
yes.
And so my talk will be different because of that. And it's a really important concept to get across to kids who your reader is, who your listener is. That makes a huge difference. So again, go easy on yourself. This is really important. I have this hanging right on my wall in front of me. And I love it because I think it's true. And it's not just true for teaching, it's true for living. Now, that's not true all the time, right? I mean, when we've done all of that front loading and done it really well, and they've had lots of practice, yes, I do expect you to fix up all your spelling and your editing, but not yet. Not yet. We haven't done enough practice, enough front loading. No. Well, thank you, Jeanette. Thank you all. Even though I can't see you, I'm very delighted that you were here today. And I hope that we gave you some inspiration and some ideas for your teaching. And I'd love to hear any feedback that you'd like to give.
That'd be awesome. So they can directly email you through the website to give you
Yeah,
feedback.
and I'll share that with you, of course.
And a lot of comments are going up on the chat. They're thanking you, Regi. Just
Oh,
mount tons of gratitude and that this book is so great and inspirational. So
oh, that's so nice.
a lot of love coming your way, Regi. So thank you for spending your time
Hey,
with
well,
us.
thank you. Great to be with you all.
All right.
Okay. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all of you.